Good morning. Welcome to the special meeting of council for the Corporation of Township of Minden Hills for Thursday, April 30th, 2026. We have a flood update. It has receded, and joy of joys, yesterday we were able to release the state of emergency. This was done with the full knowledge of the information that we received from Parks Canada, in which they felt that they were in a position to manage the waters that would be flowing from the northern lakes through the town of Minden. The lakes north of us are still overfilled, and water will be released from them over the next 2 weeks. So the waters through Minden, which will be released in a controlled manner, but they will be going up and down as they put in and remove logs from the dams as they empty the lakes. So it's still cold, it's still moving fast, so remain safe. Now there's been a number of questions that have come in. We have attempted to answer them through our updates. There was an update that was released yesterday that addressed things such as sandbags and so on. There will be more updates in the very near future as we move from our state of emergency in protecting us from the flood to the cleanup that we have to accomplish. We have been talking to volunteer groups who have agreed to help us through this process, but please refer to any of the releases that are coming from the town of Minden as to full instructions as to how we will proceed. Today we have a delegation from the County of Haliburton, IT department, and then we have an event ceremony scheduled at 10 a.m. to recognize the generous contribution from Matt and Deborah Renda of Boschkon Brewing for the new automated external defibrillator on Water Street. Council will recess around 9:55 and go to the AED site on Water Street, and we will reconvene the meeting following that ceremony. Madam Clerk, please proceed with a roll call to confirm council attendance.
Councillor Sisson.
Present.
Councillor Saini.
Present.
Councillor McKelvey sends regrets with notice. Councillor Johansson.
Present.
Councillor Ingram.
Present.
Deputy Marshall.
Present.
And Mayor Carter.
Present. We respectfully acknowledge the Township of Minden Hills is located on Treaty 20 Michisagi territory and in the traditional territory of the Michisagi and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which are Curve Lake, Rama, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. We acknowledge the shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original Indigenous inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. I call this meeting to order at 9:03 a.m. Madam Clerk, please proceed with reading the resolution for the approval of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Saini, seconded by Councillor Ingram. Be it resolved that the April 30th, 2026 special meeting of council be approved as circulated.
All those in favor? That is carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, we move to delegations. Mr. March, Director of IT from the county, please proceed when ready.
Good morning, Mayor Carter, members of council. Before you today, hopefully, is a fairly straightforward report on internet service renewal. So a bit of context, the County of Haliburton is a contracting authority for many of our municipal facilities, not just Minden Hills, but the other three municipal partners as well. And we're just at a tail end of a 10-year agreement with Bell. And we are looking to renew that agreement for 5 years for at least some of your sites. So part of the request here is for those sites listed on the second page, the Minden Hills Fire Hall, the Minden Hills Roads Garage, is just asked for council's endorsement to, I guess, reimburse the county for those costs for those two sites. We have the annual costs listed here and then the total 5-year cost. Any sites that are not listed in this chart are either A, paid for directly by the township, or B, covered 100% by the county. And that's why you don't see those here. These are the two sites that are contracted by the county that we reimburse the municipality for. Just a quick note for anybody looking at the report findings, I just noticed an error on the third bullet point under the key findings. It actually, where it says the annual cost for facilities covered under this agreement is $19,530. That's actually the 5-year cost. Your annual cost is $3,906. 5-year cost is $19,530. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions, comments? Seeing none, please, please read.
Moved by Counselor Sisson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shaw, that council authorize the Township of Minden Hills to continue participating in the County of Halliburton's Consolidated Internet Services Agreement with Bell Canada, and further that council confirm its commitment to reimburse the County of Halliburton for the township's proportionate share of the internet service and costs associated with the township's locations as outlined in the report.
All those in favor? As carried.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip back.
Thank you very much.
All right, we move to adoption of minutes from April 16th special meeting. Are there any comments or amendments? Seeing none, please read resolution.
Moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Saney, the council approves the April 16th, 2026 special council meeting minutes.
All those in favor? That is carried. In terms of a mayor's message, we sent lots of messages in the last little while. We are, as I said earlier, we're going to proceed with the cleanup. And then we are also putting together a sort of an official thank you to everybody. There are so many people to thank. This is always a very difficult thing that you want to make sure you don't leave anybody off of the list, but a special note of thank you, I think, to all the folks from Minden who helped with volunteering, showed the true spirit of Minden, and it was noticed by many people, and also all the help that we received from our neighboring municipalities, both official help and volunteer help. Without it would have made things a lot more difficult. So, as I said, we will be making further announcements. Continue to read those announcements, and also, if you have any questions, comments, our email at flood2026 is still monitored every day, and so please send everything through that. Madam CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I echo what you've said. I just wanted additionally for council, in addition to cleanup and appreciation, our treasurer and I, we have tracked all of our costs separately for this emergency event, and we're just awaiting any news on any program that might be available for us to recoup some of those costs. So I will be bringing a report to council in the future related to the events and associated costs and any programs that might be available. We will likely need a council resolution to apply for any funding. So that will be pending.
Okay. Moving on, Roma board.
Through the Thank you. Few items to report. First of all, the developing of the rural health strategy. You'll remember that we had a report that came out called Fill the Gaps Closer to Home report, and we are in the process of updating that to identify the key challenges in rural health and delivery provided that we feel every day as as users of those services. So AMO staff will support Roma in developing a rural health strategy reflecting current realities to access the health care in rural Ontario. This will include engaging patterns and experts from across health systems to foster cross-sector collaboration, align priorities and approaches, and support development of coordinated and implementation solutions to support Roma's advocacy, as we know that there are so many different agencies and organizations involved in our healthcare, and they need to be coordinated. So we're really pleased to have a really professional staff person to help coordinate those different agencies to come up with updating our strategy for healthcare in rural Ontario. The other is the AMO staff will, well, actually, we're working at the community safety and well-being plans advocacy in terms of affordability, because this has been a download from the province, and we're very fortunate that our governments here, our local and county governments have picked this up and are doing a great work in this area. However, many other places have not, were not able to enter it financially. So we want to get reimbursed for our work, and we want to get this something that the province will pay for, since they're the one that came up with this, and we have to implement it. So that's another thing that we're working on. The other is the update on the new, people have heard about the regional governance changes on Bill 100, where they're appointing, the province is appointing people to represent regional boards. This is another attack that we find against democracy in our area. It's something that we're challenging along with the Strong Mayors Act, and we'll continue to do that, and recommending that we don't use those acts. Our executive director, Lindsay Jones, went to the standing committee and responded to Bill 100, and once again saying local democracy is the engine of our community and our community life. And so what this does is begin to attack that kind of democracy in our communities. So we are very strong on that with Roma and with AMO as well. And so Lindsay, as our executive director, has been taking that message forward to the provincial government. And finally, the last item I'll highlight is consultation with AMO on new counselor education. So we are developing and making recommendations for education of new counselors. We're really excited about this because it's something that a lot of people see governance and they don't understand what we can do and not do, and where the jurisdictions are and how to participate in civil democracy. We're losing that. And so I'm really excited about the AMO's initiative to create these kinds of courses for people. And we're looking at, we had some brainstorming sessions and some ideas about what needs to go into this. And so it's building in process. So hopefully the new councils coming up will be able to take part in these kind of training expeditions and bring their issues to the table. We want to really, it's one thing to say we're against the Strong Mayors Act, we're against the appointments of regional, but unless we have a strong civil society and we have education about how governance works, we're missing part of the equation. So I'm really excited that Roma has taken this on as well. So that's my report for today. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Correspondence, communications, the consent agenda for correspondence and communication. Clerk's Department did not receive any requests to pull any items for discussion. Are there any items that people wanted to look at further? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please read the resolution.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Shell, seconded by Councillor Sisson, that council receives correspondence and communication items A to F as information.
All those in favor? That is carried. Yes, all right, the event ceremony is taking place at 10. All right, so we will keep going and come back to that. Quarterly reporting for the first quarter for capital report. Is that who's doing that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll just give a broad overview. We've
Okay.
received no questions about any of the projects. We're providing counsel. And that's fair. We're providing an overview of our capital projects for the period January to March. The majority are tracking well. There are a few that are reliant on external vendors or external supports that are not quite where we want them to be, but we're meeting regularly to look at bringing those back on track. The only thing that I will mention to council is over the next few weeks, we will be reviewing the impacts of the flooding conditions, which may have us looking at adjusting some work plans for 2026. We're not sure in some areas, the Riverwalk being one of them. Some things are still underwater and we won't know for a little while what the impacts are, but we will keep council informed as we move forward and may need to make adjustments or may need to realign some priorities.
Okay, council, any questions? Deputy Mayor Shell.
Mine was just one, and I'd mentioned it to Cynthia at the first meeting that at the September council meeting, council had directed that the fire master plan be part of our quarterly updates, what's happening with it. And we got one in November, but nothing since. So I'm just wondering if that could be brought back to us. Maybe it's for
Absolutely.
the next quarter, just because we're not getting it.
For sure.
Please.
Absolutely.
That's right. You said yes.
Yes, I think what Deputy Mayor Shell is referring to is there were a number of items within that master plan, and we can certainly provide progress on that and make sure we include it in our next quarterly report as well.
Okay. Yeah, Councilor Sisson.
Under the building services septic inspection program,
Mhm.
The fees have not been approved by a bylaw, not a concern.
I might defer to our treasurer as to whether he has been working with our building department on the septic reinspection program.
Apologies through the chair. Were you just looking for an update on the septic reinspection? So was there a specific
It's the
question?
fees have not been included in the bylaw.
Yeah, so through the chair, I did look back and they were in the 2024 bylaw, not in the updated 2025 bylaw. So it's just something we have to bring back like at the next meeting to include them.
Any other questions? Councilor Ingram.
Get the Buster grant barriers, supposed to be back in April. Barrier Buster, RBC Buster Barrier Grant, supposed to be back in April. Did we get approved?
That's something I'll have to look into on that grant.
Can I continue?
Go ahead.
There's some concerns about the accessibility upgrades coming into Lame Duck Council. Will that affect, because that's a fairly large, that's $1 million project.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have already allocated a portion of that
Yep,
project
310.
to one of the areas, and then council has already approved
Okay, so we're good.
other projects that fall under that grant.
Okay. I'm just wondering why it's gonna take so long to get the generator for the arena. So
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll have to follow up on what the timelines are on that. I think what we've done, Councillor Ingram, is probably erred on the side of caution in terms of timelines, so that we look a little bit better when we accomplish them quicker.
absolutely, thank you. It's a good move. Well, the other thing I had was, yeah, JL Richard providing support for planning. Consolidated official planning and zoning bylaw. I thought we hired a student last year to do that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did have a student, but as part of their work to look at streamlining processes, it was something that was included in their in their work.
Okay.
Yeah, just to finalize,
Yeah, yeah.
really.
Okay, the only other thing I asked, and it might be part of the report that's coming forward, is about the additional funding, the bypass line at Window subdivision, water and sewer. It's gone quite a bit. It's up to 366,000.
Yeah, through the chair, that is the report.
Okay,
We're gonna
thanks.
discuss that, yeah.
That's all I got.
Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Shell.
It's not a question, just a comment. Snowden Park is DON, not DEN, and it shows up in our stuff a lot.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we will, yeah, that's happened a few
Thank
times.
you.
Thank you.
It's a small thing, but it's not to people who live in
That's how you
Snowden.
say it.
Yeah. Well, how do you say Gellert?
Counselor Sisson.
I just have a couple more. The old fire hall was not mentioned at all. If we put money in the budget to do something there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our understanding of the monies for the old fire hall was to put money in the budget that would build up for us to do something significant on the block there.
Plan of it, yeah.
Well, that is something we will get to in the future.
And the other one I had is, I know Lockman Hall has started, Yahoo. When, do we have a proposed date of starting the new building?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would have to follow up on the construction timelines.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, any other questions?
Moved by Counselor Hannison, seconded by Counselor Sini, that council receives the 2026 capital report first quarter for January to March as information.
All those in favor is carried. Moving to the operating report, we covered some of them.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, we, again, this is for the same period, operating highlights for January to March from each one of the areas. What I might highlight that's a bit different from the last report you saw is the charts under Public Works that I believe, Mike, are coming from our speed cameras or speed signs. I was flabbergasted by the volume of traffic on some of our core roads. So I would just draw council's attention to those charts.
Other questions? Seeing none?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Counselor
Um,
Sisson.
Through the chair, yes, we were successful with that.
Any other questions? Please read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Sini, that council receives the 2026 operating report for the first quarter, January to March as information.
All those in favor? It's carried. Mr. Timmons, you'll join us to talk about the pumping station rehabilitation. Okay, here comes the cavalry.
So just through the chair, I had initially based on the agenda, told them to come after 10. So this is why we're trying to, I have sent them a text and they're here. So I appreciate that. And we have Mr. Jack Lee joining us as well virtually from the Aqua Engineering department. So I will start with a brief introduction. Obviously, I have the folks here to talk specifically about the project, give a little bit more of a background. Initially, this project was some internal refurbishment of the pumping station on Ord Street. We originally had $115,000 budgeted. This is actually a 2025 carryover project. Further investigation as Aqua was preparing tender documents and all that stuff to go with it. They've identified an additional significant amount of work that should be done at the time. So it's a change in scope that's leading this change in price. We do have a couple different numbers in this report because at this time we're not completely confident on what the total expense will be. Our estimate is about 270,000, but there has been some warning, let's say, from the consultant that at this point it's a high level estimate and a sort of a high end could be up to 365,000. We have not yet gone to tender, so obviously once we do that, we'll have a firm price. I will turn it over to Mr. Manning and Mr. Lee to discuss the changes in scope that have led to this, and then we can have a discussion. I'm not sure Mr. Lee or Mr. Manning wants to start.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Good morning, councilors. I'm the project engineer at Aqua.
I'm sorry,
Helped.
we're having trouble hearing you. I don't know if you can get closer to your microphone or whatever, but we're not really being able to understand what you're saying.
Okay, so can you hear me better now? Because I'm using my headset here.
A little better, but not very clear.
Okay, so how about now?
That's
Okay.
better.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. So my name is Jack Lee, a project engineer at Aqua. I assist with our operations team to look at the construction scope for pumping station number 1's rehabilitation and put together a very high level cost estimate because the scope definition is just based on the inspection findings and based on the scope descriptions in previous request for tender. Engineering development, or let's say design development, hasn't been done yet. So that's why let's say we just can provide this high level cost estimate based on the benchmarks of previous projects we did for other clients, similar type of projects. So why we have, let's say, a lot of variance from this 250 to 250 grand up to I think, let's see, we recommended to have, let's say, at least 50% more on top of this 250 because there are a lot of uncertainties we haven't addressed. So far, I provided a scope description with the assumptions and the limitations in the cost estimate. So first of all, I need to explain the previous cost estimate was about 150 grand, and now we added about 100 grand on top of it because the previous scope didn't include bypass pumping system requirements in the tender scope. Because this pumping station is in service and we have to keep it in service when the construction is in progress. So then we have to bypass this pumping station from the manhole in advance for pumping stations well and keep the service to the residents upstream of this pumping station. So the bypass pumping system, based on previous projects cost estimate, it could up to $30,000 for a month of bypass operation. But this is just based on previous cost estimate. At this moment, we are facing the surge of fuel price. So we don't know if we are going to encounter any kind of a surcharge of a fuel price at this moment. So we need to consider this uncertainty. Also, The contract scope will include a modification of existing bypass piping, which is currently located inside the manhole or number 139, because it is very rusted. It's not reliable. I'm suggesting to modify it to the outside of this manhole, and that will involve some kind of civil work like excavation, backfill, and pipe modification work. But for this modification work, we need to test the isolation valves on the existing force main and this bypass pipe. So we don't know this buried valve are optional or functional at this moment or not. We need to test to confirm. And based on the testing result, we need to determine whether we need to replace them or not. So there's some scope uncertainty in there. And other assumptions, let's say, like the sizing of the bypass pumping system, we assume the peak flow during the construction phase will not exceed the existing pumping station's rated capacity, which means I think at this moment is about 30 liters per second. But if we are going to, we need to consider and we need to evaluate the historical data to confirm this. And all this work, we will need an engineer, design engineer to involve and do the sizing work and do the specifications for the contractor to bid. So definitely, like this project will need engineering services from a design engineer. So we need to, I think the township need to hire a design engineer to do the job.
Okay, that wasn't 100% clear, so could you summarize that?
Were the specifications for the piping that needs replacement. One of the additions is the bypass piping that's in a adjacent manhole. So that piping wasn't in the original scope, but it's in pretty rough condition. And we were worried that when we try to tie in bypass pumping to that pipe, that we might run into problems. So that's been added. There's also a feeder line that comes in from the Windover subdivision directly into that pump station. So we're gonna have to pick up bypass flow from two different manholes to get it to that bypass station. So instead of just having one pump that would bypass the station, we're gonna need two pumps. We do have a pump, so the intent would be to use our pump to do one of the bypass locations, but there's still gonna be another one. So, and then pre-COVID, like we historically did these some piping replacements in situ, but most of the contractors now won't do piping work in situ. They want the station bypassed. So that's kind of what has led us to where we are with this project.
So the bypass, you're saying that you have to create some temporary bypass in order to do the work, or
We're
exactly?
basically pumping out of a manhole to a force main connection that's pre-existing but in rough shape. So we're basically picking up the flow so that it doesn't go into the pump station, so they can work in the pump station. So we're just rerouting the flow, not through the pump station.
Okay. What? Go ahead, and we'll get to questions later.
Yeah, so those are the main additions. So the additional bypass pumping and replacement of the bypass connection. And then obviously pipe replacements. There's some engineering work in terms of specifications for the tender in terms of piping specifications and valves piping. So that we're essentially replacing like for like, but given the corrosion that's in that station, we're suggesting that it be replaced with stainless steel instead of ductile iron.
Questions? Councilor Saini?
Yes, thank you for that information. I think this is a lot of money for such a short report that we have in writing. So we don't have really a lot of time to kind of digest all that goes into it and also to put it in the larger context of our overflows that people are very concerned about and understanding that and how do we explain those overflows as well. So I'm just wondering if at some point we could bring back something a little bit more detailed in writing about how we're progressing with this and what we're seeing in the future in a larger context. Because it's just a lot of information that's verbal and not very much in the report. So it would be hard for me to explain to somebody this from our reports just now. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So what I'm hearing is you want what Jeremy just said in a report. Okay, fair enough.
Councillor Sisson?
So Jeremy, this is projected 366. That's the worst case? What's the best case? It might be half of that. Once you get into it, might be not as bad.
207. So the range is 270 to 360. And
Okay.
there's contingency obviously in both.
So it's in between that figure somewhere. Thank you.
And what's your timing?
We're hoping to tender it this year and begin construction this year. Well, hoping to finish this year, just depending on timeline. It's more so like we just want to beat the spring belt. For flow management, yeah.
Any other questions? MCA?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to clarify that the report that was asked for is a for information report, that today we're looking for direction to allow Aqua to go forward on our critical infrastructure. Thank you.
And I think at this point, so we will run the tender and then we'll present the tender results. And then obviously you'll have another chance to approve the project.
Is that your resolution?
Through the chair, I don't think we'll need to add that. As Mr. Manning has already stated, he'll include that information within the award of the tender.
Okay.
So I don't think we need that in a resolution. That's obviously they're gonna have to do that report regardless.
Right.
If council's comfortable with that decision. Moved by Councillor Saney, seconded by Councillor Ingram, that council receives report 2611, Public Works, Aqua, Sanitary Pumping Station Rehabilitation for information, and that council directs staff to proceed with the project with an upset limit of 244,000 to be funded from the wastewater reserves.
I have a problem.
Sorry.
Because we just heard that we're talking 270 to 360, so I'm not certain that we approve that limit of 244.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll just ask Mr. Timmons to clarify, there was already money in the budget. And I think, is this the difference between what was in the budget and what Mr. Manning just quoted?
115.
Yeah. I do believe now that I'm looking at this, I think you want to put the upset limit at that 366. We have it at the something got,
So
I think. Right, so I think considering we are coming back obviously with a report on the tender, right? We're not approving the actual budget right now. I think it should read, instead of the 244, I think it should read the 366, which is the true upset limit. We're hoping it's closer to that 270. But the upset limit that's been provided is 266. So I'm not sure how that error got in there, but that would be my recommendation. We're coming back anyway, once it's been tendered, to actually present the contract price. I think that would be a better way of putting it at this point, in my opinion, and I apologize for the error, but I would.
From the wastewater.
So may I make some suggestion? From cost estimation aspect or for the budget planning aspect, I would suggest the township to consider a upside limit of 366 grand. But this, I think this should be keep as a confidential information.
that
Yeah.
is what we are doing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. That council receives report 2611 Public Works Aqua Sanitary Pumping Station Rehabilitation for information, and that council directs staff to proceed with the project with an upset limit of 366,000 to be funded from the wastewater reserves.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. The culverts on Clear Lake Road.
Thank you, Mayor Carter. This one's better news when it comes to the financial piece, so that's always good. So we did put this out to tender in the spring. We have our results. We had 9 submissions that were all compliant. As you see, there was a wide range of pricing. We did our review. There were three rated criteria on top of the price. So the price was 70% of the total point system. We also evaluated 10 points for health and safety plan, 10 points for contingency plan, and 10 points on experience and references for a total of 100 available points. You'll see in the financial implications section, we had a budget of 350,000 for this project. And when you look at the point breakdown, our recommendation is to award to Young's Construction, who got 93.5 points in this tender process. That's effectively the report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to discuss.
Questions? Counselor Sisson?
I don't know why we don't have the prices that were submitted on here, because we're supposed to, but anyways, I understand this is not the lowest bid, Mike, that you're suggesting we accept. And it brings back memories of Mash Creek to me. We almost had to go to court over that one because it was so close. And the lower bid was quite upset about it. I just want you to say, like, these definitely were not the lowest bids.
Through the chair, I don't include the price because we are rating on the total points. Obviously, the submission here over made up the in my opinion, minor difference in price. I understand the Mash Creek situation, but this is still my recommendation. I believe it was the best submission, and they won the most points in the bidding process.
Counselor Ringo?
Through you, Mayor Carter, I would agree with Councillor Sisson. I'd like to see the numbers on the page from now on. I think it's an obligation through the municipal act that they have to be on there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will ask our treasurer to come up. One of the things that we're going to have to discuss is there was a public procurement process that was rated by more than one person. And you have a recommendation in front of you, and there may be risk to going in a different direction.
Thank you. Through the chair, we are following our procurement policy to a T on doing a point system per bid. While it may not be the lowest, it still wins on the other categories that we noted in the RFP process. If we go outside this recommendation, based on our points and our scoring from our staff and our review committee, that's when we would open up to potential issues, because now we have a higher scoring bidder and we're not selecting them. So that's really the issue. The prices were quite close for the top 3 or 4. And it really came down to the other factors. That's what made the difference. And those other factors are quite important with this project, such as a warranty, a good health and safety plan, and sorry, what was the and our contingency and experience and references. So that's really what it came down to on the submissions.
Any other questions? Please read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Samey, seconded by Counselor Ingram, that council receive report 2612 Public Work Roads, Clear Lake Road, Twin Culvert Award as information, and that council directs staff to award the RFP number RDS 26-001 for the replacement of the Clear Lake Road Twin Culverts to Young's Construction LTD for a cost of $224,526 plus HST. And further, the council direct the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement attached to Schedule A to bylaw 2465.
All those in favor? That is carried. We'll do these road resurfacing. Questions? Councilor Sisson?
One question, Mike. So this includes everything except the Bethel Road, right, within the budget? Right, but
Yeah, so Bethel Road was not in the budget for this year, so this is all in for the road.
everything else that was on there.
That's right.
Thank you.
Including Secretary Seal.
Other questions? Please read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Sisson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shaw, that council receives report 2613, Public Works Roads, Road Resurfacing and Slurry Seal Contract Award as information. And that council directs staff to award this work to Miller Paving Limited for a total of $1,309,089.67 plus HST. And that council directs staff to fund the $31,295,000 shortfall to the roads capital reserve. And further, that council directs the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement attached to this report as Schedule A.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Mr. Timmons. I think we will do the community services. Mile columbarium. Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Mayor and councilors. So before you is a report of to waive the formal tender profit process under section 7 of the Township Agreement Policy to single source for the 12-mile columbarium in 2011. Tompkins and Hills Monuments did the columbarium at 12 miles. So to keep the decorum and to keep the columbarium, the niche engraving the same, that is why I'm requesting the waive of the formal tender. They have the history of the cemetery and also had plotted out when they did it in 2011 for additions of 2 more columbariums to that area. I'm happy to take any further questions.
Any questions? Councilor Ingram.
Have we looked at anybody else other than them, just on the ballpark number, or just Heels?
No, they're all fairly comparable,
Okay.
but it changes in the fonts.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? Please read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Sisson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shaw, that council receive report 2607, Community Services Department, 12-mile columbarium misinformation. And that council agrees to waive the requirement for a formal tender process under section 7 of the Township's Procurement Policy 17 to single source the vendor with existing knowledge and skills of the nature of service. And that council directs staff to award purchase and installation to Tompkins and Hills Monuments, Inc. in the amount of $27,500 plus HST from property reserves.
All those in favor? That is carried. All right, we will break now and make our way to Water Street for this ceremony, and we will recommence when it's over. That's the easiest way to do it. Thank you. Okay, welcome back after a good ceremony that this addition of this AED unit right in by the wharf and right in the center of downtown is a very important addition, and hopefully it will never be used. But if it needs to be, it will be there. So we move on to planning and development. Ms. Doherty, please take us through your report, starting with source water protection.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Report 26-16 is to bring back the amendments for source water protection. As council probably remembers, the public meeting was held on March 12th and a decision was deferred at that time in order to allow for incorporating comments, although there wasn't very many, and also to allow for public agencies to also submit additional comments following that meeting. So we did receive comments from City of Kawartha Lakes, and as council may recall or know, the environmental planner there was formerly the township's program lead for source water protection, as well as for a period of time, the risk management official. So staff certainly did undertake a careful consideration of those comments. So there is a red line that was included with the report just to make clear any changes that occurred from those comments. Changes were generally just to ensure clarity between the policy and the official plan wording and to also reflect that in zoning in comparison to the source protection plan. But the overall intent of the policy implementation won't change from what was presented on the 12th. So happy to say we're recommending approval, but happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, please read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Sini, that council receive report 2616, planning his information, and further that bylaw 2631 to adopt the official plan amendment 18 and bylaw 2632 to approve the zoning bylaw amendment intended to introduce policies and provisions ensuring the long-term protection of the township's municipal drinking water systems be referred to the bylaw section of the agenda.
All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to pre-consultation.
Through Mr. Mayor, report 2620, that's for a pre-consultation application for proposed lot addition for lands on Sawyers Lake, proposing to sever a portion of land from 1284 Poverty Bay Trail, which would be added to 1289 Poverty Bay Trail. The policy, the official plan policy, specifically 6.2.2, it does encourage lot additions, but providing that an irregular shaped lot does not result. Unfortunately, with the way that the lot is proposed to be severed, staff are of the opinion it would be of a regular shape. And it would also make a lot which is currently compliant with lot size significantly deficient in lot size. Staff are therefore not proposing to or not recommending that the proposal be endorsed as it doesn't represent good planning or conform to policy. Staff are of the opinion that it might be possible to reconfigure that lot addition, which would keep the subject property compliant while also improving conditions for the benefiting lands. But this was the proposal that the property owner wanted to see come forward. So happy again to answer any questions.
Questions? Seeing none, please read the resolution.
By Counselor Sini, seconded by Counselor Johansson, that council receive report 2620, planning his information, and that council does not recommend approval of the application for lot creation of lands identified as 1284 Poverty Bay Trail to the County of Halliburton Land Division.
All those in favor? That is carried. Next report, 2621.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So there are portions of the county building entrance on Newcastle Street which encroach into the municipal sidewalk and road allowance. There is an existing agreement to recognize those encroachments. However, the county is undergoing internal as well as external renovations to their building. And as part of the external renovations, they are proposing a new ramp that would allow or ensure accessibility compliance, as well as proposing certain beautification features such as garden boxes. So there are no concerns from a staff perspective with those components. However, it was considered appropriate to amend the existing agreement in place. And that new agreement would serve to recognize the new footprint of those encroachments. Again, happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Seeing none.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Shell, seconded by Counselor Sisson, that council receive report 2621 planning's information, and further that bylaw 2644 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a licensing agreement with the county of Halliburton be referred to the bylaw section of the agenda.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Ms. Doherty. Mr. Drinkwalter. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Through the chair. So as many of you know, we've been working on a joint RFP with the County of Halliburton and Algonquin Highlands for a new ERP system or a financial software. And we received a lot of bids. I think there was about 11 or so bids for various different companies. We had a joint committee do the review of all the tenders. And we had a few tenders with the same product. So a product called Syllogist, which is municipal financial software, or at least does the taxes, utilities, and the other portion of the financial software will be made up by Microsoft 365 product. So joint together, that'll build our ERP system. So I believe 3 or 4 of the tenders included this Syllogist Gov municipal platform. Out of the tenders, there were 2 that scored very high. And we ended up selecting the second highest bid, the second highest scoring. And the reason for that, the points were extremely close. They were, I believe, 0.3 difference. But the price point was about about just over $400,000. And it's a very similar product. But the cost savings for the total implementation was about $400,000 with this one vendor. We also sought legal advice on this selection, and were noted we're allowed to proceed forward with the second highest scoring, and based on the price point and being a very similar product and just a different implementation. The product, the big savings in this, not just the with the tender we selected, there's a huge implementation cost savings doing this with the county and Algonquin Highlands at the same time. Our current software, which is Vadim iCity, is a quite old platform that's been around for a long time, and it was about 5 years ago bought out by a company called Central Square. Central Square is now building a new platform, and they're working towards that. So the support and the back end work being done on Vadim iCity are becoming less and less. And while it's not at end of life, we suspect that within the next 3 to 4 years, it likely will be at the end of life. And because of the cost savings doing this collaboratively, it does make sense to do the transfer at this time. There's also a lot of things that our current platform doesn't have, such as a public portal that people can view their taxes. There's really not any automated workflow systems. So when I say automated workflow systems, something like an invoice coming in for approval, we do that all manually right now. And this would allow approval authorities through management, and it would get sent directly to them. They would approve it. It would go back to AP. So to take a lot of the manual steps and a lot of the extra administrative work that's a part of those processes. So AP is just one example, but it is applies to many different areas in the township. I think those are the main points. So the total, just for the financials, the total value of the implementation is $828,298. Now that is for all three municipalities. Our portion of that is 312,848.36. Ours is slightly higher because we have the utilities module, and not the other two municipalities don't have that. And the county of Haliburton also doesn't have a tax module. So they don't collect taxes or bill out taxes. We do that on their behalf. I think that's it, unless there's any questions with the platform or the process.
So just to clarify, the utilities module is so that you can do your wastewater and water billing and
Correct,
collection,
yes,
right?
yes.
Questions? Well, since this is the foundation that we build all the admin on, I think it's and it keeps track of our money, which is always important. Seems to be the thing to do. Please read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Harrison, seconded by Counselor Sadie, that council receives report 2604, Joint Enterprise Resource Planning, ERP implementation for information. And that council approves the Township of Minden Hills participating in a joint ERP implementation of Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central with the Sylogist Gov municipal platform, along with the County of Haliburton and the Township of Algonquin Highlands for implementation, and that council authorized the County of Haliburton to enter into an ERP contract on behalf of the Township of Minden Hills as part of the joint procurement, and that the Township of Minden Hills reimburse the County of Haliburton for its share of the contract, cost equaling $312,848.36.
All those in favor? That is carried. Here we go to your quarterly report. Let me guess, April changed your outlook for the year.
There likely will be some changes with the April edition, but April is not included in this quarterly report. So it's to ending March 31st. We've updated it as recent. I believe we updated these numbers end of last week, so they are quite current for our actuals. So the summary is quite long, but the first page on the attachment has a overall summary of the operating expenditures, the capital expenditures, and the operating revenues. And then below that, each department is broken out with their own operating values. Compared, so we have the 2026 budget compared to actuals, and we also, I believe, on the last page of the attachment, there is a capital breakdown for expenses by department, and we haven't spent a big portion of capital yet because it's early in the year and construction season is upon us. So we'll be Q2 and Q3 will be the big capital expenditures. So unless there was any specific questions or a way you wanted me to go through it.
Did you have anything that you wanted to specifically highlight?
Not specifically. The only thing I would note is the insurance costs still need to be allocated. So you'll see some line items, insurance that are zero and some that are over budget, but they'll be allocated once we, I still need to review how we've allocated them in the past and how we're going to allocate them going forward. But other than that, there's no real outliers that I see in the first quarter that popped out to me that would show that we're going to be way over budget in any line item. Usually Q1's pretty soft in a municipality with no with the snow going away and also no construction started. So
questions, Councillor Ingram?
Through the chair, Zach, it's not to this report. I meant to ask you in quarterly reporting. It's just a simple question. I'm wondering where we're at with the 2024 audit and FIR.
Yes, that's through the chair. We've just about completed all of the audit work. We are finalizing some of our TCA capital asset work, There was substantial work that needed to be done just to get us caught up. But we have, before we had some of our emergency going on, I was in touch with the auditors. They were expected to start end of April, early May. So I'm starting to upload all the data for them onto their platform so they can start the audit and we can get the FIR done.
That's great news. I think we all appreciate your hard work on that. And I know you had a load of work to do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Let's read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Sisson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shell, that council receives report 2605, Finance Quarterly Report, Q1 per information.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Ms. Bull, are you going to remain in your presidency?
Well, yes, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So, in preparation of the 2026 municipal elections, staff have reviewed and provided some amendments to the Corporate Resource Policy 116 for council's consideration. The policy contributes a consistent approach and direction regarding the use of municipal resources during an election campaign period. So the amended version is in the new policy format before council and includes just a few areas of rewording. I would say the most significant change would be under the prohibited uses of corporate resources and under the exemption section, where I've actually acknowledged that the township facilities as is a permitted use for campaign purposes when it's related to rented spaces. So if they've gone in and rented the space, it just gives them the ability to have their party or whatever the intended use is. However, they have to remove everything as soon as the rental term is complete. And it actually excludes the administration municipal office here, the council chambers when we utilize it for the election information center, and of course, any voting locations that we would be utilizing up at the community center. Staff have also expanded on some wording related to the office resources for equipment and devices. We've also included the live streaming of meetings as a prohibited use. We've also added some wording just under the statement and rationale, and it just explains the balance in keeping a candidate's ability for freedom of expression and also not providing an unfair advantage during a campaign period. So happy to take any questions that council may have. That was just a quick, brief review of some of the changes.
Questions? No.
Okay. Moved by Counselor Saney, seconded by Counselor Johansson, that council receives report 2616, Corporate Resource Policy 116 as information, and that council concurs with the changes and adopts the policy as amended.
All those in favor? That is carried. Moving right along to bylaws.
Moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Saney. Be it resolved that the following bylaws be received, read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed. Bylaw 2631, Official Plan Amendment 18. Bylaw 2632, Zoning Bylaw Amendment. Bylaw 2642, Road Resurfacing Contract Agreement. Bylaw 2643, Clear Lake Road Twin Culvert Agreement. Bylaw 2644, Licensing Agreement with the County of Halbert.
All those in favor? That is carried. Confirming bylaw.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Shell, seconded by Counselor Sisson, that bylaw 2645, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council held during its special meeting of April 30th, 2026, be received, read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed.
All those in favor? That is carried. Adjournment.
Moved by Counselor Saney, seconded by Counselor Johansson, be it resolved that the April 30th, 2026 special council meeting is hereby adjourned at 10:30 a.m.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everyone. Our next council meeting schedule, and it will be Thursday, May the 14th. Bye all.